Hello Great Talks, welcome back to a new video. In today's video we'll be dealing with economics public sector. So part of the term 1 topics for economics grade 12. The first one we're going to do the circular flow. I have a video that deals with the circular flow. I will link it down in the description box, and then there's also the one for business cycle. I will also link it down in the description box. And today I'll be doing public sector. That's the one that I don't have on the channel, and that's what I'll be doing today. So the circular flow and the business cycle will be linked in the description box. The videos are already recorded, or this will be part of a playlist. Hopefully you can get them as part of this playlist. So without wasting any more of your time, guys, let's get right into it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel to grow, and share with your friends if you're enjoying them. If these videos are quite helpful in helping you understand this theory, share them with your friends. Okay, share them, guys, please. So today we'll be dealing with the public sector. When we're talking about the public sector, we are talking about government. Okay, the government is the public sector, so keep that in mind. So this topic discusses the importance of the public sector. Why is government important? So we are going to go deep into those details, and we'll also discuss the success and failures of the public sector. So where has public sector, the government, succeeded, and where has the government failed? There is a lot of wind outside, so if that sound reflects in the video, please bear with me, guys. So you should be able to critically discuss problems of public sector provisioning in South Africa. So public sector provides certain needs to the public, and you should be able to critically discuss that in detail. It can be an SA type question. They like it as an SA type question as well. So in this topic, you will learn about the composition and necessity of the public sector. So what does public sector entails, and why do we need the public sector? And then problems of public sector provisioning. What problems do the government have with regards to providing goods and services? Public goods and services. So we have objectives of the public sector and its budget. Objectives of the business sector is what the business sector wants to achieve, and how does it does that through budgeting. And then we're going to discuss the fiscal policy, including the Laffer curve. And then we are going to discuss reasons for public failure. Why can a public sector fail? So composition of the public sector is the national government, the provincial government, local government or municipalities, and state-owned enterprises. So problems of public sector provision, we have objectives, public sector budgets, fiscal policy, including the Laffer curve, and reasons for failure. So when we're talking about national government, we're talking about the presidency, where the presidents and the ministers are. The ministers of finance, education, business enterprises, sports, recreation, and all that. So those are a national government. And then we have provincial government, where we have the MECs of provinces, where we have the MEC of education, the MEC of what, and where we also have the premiers of different provinces in South Africa. The Premier of Free State, the Premier of Johannesburg, not Johannesburg, so the Premier of Gauteng, the Premier of Western Cape, the Premier of Northwest, the Premier of Limpopo, so forth. So that's where we're talking about provincial, while national is bigger than that. The parliament, where we have presidency and big ministers. That is where we have the national government, and then the provincial is down, and then local government is our municipalities. The municipal office in your area, it's local government. And then state-owned enterprises are businesses that are owned by the state, like Eskom, for instance, like the post office, like the SAAA, that is a flight business owned by the government. So those are state-owned enterprises. So as you can see here, the national government is represented by the following position: the president, government, cabinet ministers, the members of parliament. The government is responsible for national issues such as defense and education. And then the provincial government is responsible for aiding national issues within their own provinces. Addressing, not aiding, I'm sorry. It's responsible for addressing national issues within their province. And then provincial government receives a budget from national budget, but they also generate their own income, mostly from taxes. So the local government is responsible for issues that affect local communities such as road, electricity, sewage, and is managed by mayors and city councillors. That is the local government. The state-owned enterprises are owned and managed by the state and tries to do so in the best interest of all citizens. So these are necessity of the public sector. Why do we need the public sector? That is the necessity of the public sector. Why is it necessary for public sector to exist? So the public sector is crucial to the state. It provides the structure and law and order that allows our society to exist. Just imagine if everybody behaved the way they want to behave, did everything they want to do whenever they want to do it, and there were no rules governing conduct in this country. So the government mentor is crucial in a society in the way that it helps govern the country, okay, so that they can be law and order, and everything should be done within the borders of certain laws and regulations or procedures that govern that nation. So it's very important that we have the public sector. Okay, the public sector determines the policies they believe will improve the living conditions and lives of all citizens. That's why we have the public sector. So need for government intervention. The public sector exists because there's need for government intervention. Government intervention is government involvement in communities. So the public sector is motivated by profit and cannot satisfy the private sector. So we have the public, which is government. The government is public, and then private are private owned businesses. All the big businesses that we know of, where we go on a daily basis to buy bread and groceries, are part of the private sector. So private sector only cares about what? Making a profit. So if we didn't have the public sector and it was only the private sector would do as it pleases, and it will exploit people, charge high prices. But because this government, they regulate their prices, make sure that people are not charged more than they are supposed to be charged for consumable goods. Okay, so it's very important that government intervenes to make sure that they charge prices that people are able to afford. So some citizens will end up being excluded from economic cycle and won't be able to afford to pay to satisfy their needs. So government intervention is required in the following situation. When does the government need to interfere? When goods have little or no profit. The private sector is not interested in providing goods with little profit. So like sanitation, where we have toilets, sewer, the private sector is not interested in providing those needs. So the public sector has to provide them because they don't make a profit. Okay, so it's the public sector's responsibility to provide goods which the private sector is not providing because of there is no profit. They doesn't make business sense, but they are very important and crucial for people to live a life that is up to a good standard. when very large capital investment is required. So when somebody is investing a lot of money in a certain project, the government has to be involved, because infrastructure require extremely large capital investment that the private sector can't pay for. So somebody wants to build roads, want to donate money to build roads, bridges, and all that. The public sector needs to be involved, because the private sector cannot pop out its money and build such things without getting anything in return. And then the third point or situation where the government can intervene is when the return of capital investment are extremely long term. So the private sector does not invest in ventures that take a long time to show profit. So they want to make profit immediately, the private sector, because they have to pay salaries and wages. The government also intervened to achieve political and social economic aims. So the government provides some goods and services to address political and social issues. Let's do like even like healthcare clinics, police stations, and so on. So the private sector cannot do that, but the public sector can. So unit 2, problems with public sector provisioning. The problem that public sector has with providing this public goods and services is that in the public sector, there is a problem of accountability. Nobody is accountable. That's why they fail dismally to produce or to not to produce, to supply public goods and services like roads, like infrastructure. It's very, very, very difficult for them to provide infrastructure. The problem is accountability. So economic accountability. Government is responsible for managing the economy. Okay, so the government is responsible. That's why it has to provide these goods and services. So the problem of public sector provisioning. The government has economic accountability, has financial accountability, political accountability. Auditor General, the annual report of government departments needs to include, among others, audited financial statements and statements of program performance. So portfolio committee in the National Assembly, there is a portfolio committee for each government department. Committees are responsible for monitoring the performance of their respective department. The second issue is the problem of assessing goods. Government must be able to ensure that its citizens are able to satisfy their basic needs. So to do this, the government must first assess the needs of its people. So the government is unable, has a problem of assessing needs. The government needs to know the size of the population, their ages, and other information in order to be able to do this. They will use a number of institutions to collect and interpret this information, including census, statistics provided by Statistics South Africa, and surveys conducted by hospitals and school. And then also there's a problem of efficiency. Efficiency is a problem in the public sector because efficiency is seldom measured and assessed. So they do not assess if something really benefits. It's efficient, it's working properly, and it's benefiting people. They cannot assess that. And then there is the problem of the pricing policy. They find it difficult to price. Okay, the aim of government provision is to achieve social, economic, and political objectives, and is therefore not guided by profit maximization, by the social responsibility. So they don't know how to price efficiently, because they do not render goods to make profit. Public goods can be one of the two types: non-excludable goods or non-rival goods. So we have two public goods. Non-excludable goods are those goods which are consumed collectively by the community without excluding others. Non-excludable goods benefit every citizen and are not paid for. So what is non-excludable? Everybody is able to make use of this public goods. Nobody is excluded, like water. And then we have non-rival goods do not diminish in supply for one person when another person consumes those goods. So they are always available. If this person consumes it, the other person would still get the same goods. Like electricity, I cannot finish electricity for others, or water, they will still get it. So there is also the problem of parastatals, okay, in the government sector. So without competitors and with government funding and support, parastatals are very often inefficient with low productivity and a poor service culture. Because of the problems associated with public enterprise have led government to embark on the privatization and restructuring of some state-owned enterprises, because some people that are employed are not working efficiently. The state, which is the public sector, had to sell some of its businesses to the private sector so that they do not collapse. Yeah, we have like Telkom. It was a fully state-owned business, but it now has public owners to be able to make sure that it doesn't collapse. The following are ways that the government can privatize parastatals: sales of public assets, contracting out, outsourcing, tendering, public-private partnership, the state stops providing a service, or deregulation. So parastatals are state-owned enterprises, okay? So just know that. So these are ways that the state-owned enterprises can be converted into private companies. So here in Unit 3 is objectives of the public sector and its budget. So these are the objectives of the public sector. The public sector tries to ensure that as many people as possible enjoy high standard of living. In order to do this, the government tries to achieve the following objectives, which are goals. The first objective is to improve economic growth. Let's say the growth is for everybody in the to achieve a high standard of living. So the objective will be how to achieve that goal. So the goal here is to have a possible for citizens to enjoy a high standard of living. That is a goal. So objective is how are we going to make sure that people of this country enjoy high standard of living. We need to improve economic growth, to achieve full employment or reduce unemployment, to maintain price stability, to maximize exchange rate stability, and to achieve a fair income distribution, economic equity, so that those who were previously disadvantaged can get a turn to be prioritized to balance the imbalance of the past. So budget of the public sector. The government uses budget as a tool to plan and monitor its revenue and expenditure. So the South African budget is divided into two categories: the medium-term expenditure frame and the main budget. So the medium-term expenditure frame is a plan of estimated revenue and expenditure which runs for a period of 3 years. The objective of the medium-term expenditure framework are to close the gap between financial needs for each department and what government can afford, remove uncertainty among ministers for the next 3 years, and improve the allocation of resources to strategic priorities among departments, and then increase the level of transparency of both policies and funding. So in October each year, the Minister of Finance presents the medium term budget policy statement. Is a policy statement issued by government which defines the parameters for the following year's budget. So the purpose of the statement is to set the policy context and direction so that departments, provinces, and municipalities can prepare for budget plans for the following 3 years. And you must know that the national budget is presented as two pieces of legislation which are introduced simultaneously. So number one is the division of the revenue bill, which prescribes how revenue will be divided between the three spheres of government, which is national, provincial, and local. And then the appropriation bill, it allocates funds to different national departments. Once it's become an act, it gives them authority to spend the money allocated to them. So sources of government revenue. How does the government make money? It makes money through taxes, and it makes money through loans. Again, when there is too little tax revenue to achieve objectives, the government may borrow from other countries, the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, through donations, administrative income. This is the revenue received from license and fines when you go and make a license, when you go and do a passport. That is administrative income. They also do commercial income and for services rendered by the state. And then like water, electricity, state property income from mining, state forestry, and other government properties. And now let's talk about the fiscal policy. It's by the Minister of Finance. The monetary policy is by the Reserve Bank. What is the fiscal policy? The two main structures of fiscal policy are government taxation and government spending. So fiscal policy is used to stabilize the economy by adjusting levels and allocation of taxes and government spending. So you see this in is it the circular flow? Where we talk about the fiscal policy and the monetary policy. So the fiscal policy has to do with government taxation and government spending. So government income, which is taxation, and government spending. It's controlled by the Minister of Finance. So features of the fiscal policy: there is neutral fiscal policy, happens when government runs a balanced budget. So when the budget is balanced, we have a neutral fiscal policy. We have expansionary fiscal policy is aimed at stimulating economic activities. This is we use it for business cycle. When the economy is in expansion, this policy is aimed at stimulating economy. So when the economy is in recession, which is contraction, they implement expansionary fiscal policy to grow the economy. When the economy is in contractionary fiscal policy, when the economy is in expansion, is growing too high, they want to calm the economy down, they use contractionary fiscal policy. So instruments of fiscal policy is taxation. Taxation is compulsory, is a compulsory levy charged on persons, companies, and goods and services in order to finance government expenditure. And then government spending consists of government consumption and government investment. When there are roads that are being built, stadiums, that is government spending. Or creating jobs, subsidizing firms, buying materials for small businesses, assets. So goal of fiscal policy. What is the goal of fiscal policy? The macroeconomics goal normally include economic growth, job creation, price stability, balance of payment stability, equitable distribution of income, and alleviation of poverty. So that is the goal of fiscal policy. When the economy is doing bad, the government tries its best to grow the economy and stabilize it. When the economy is growing too much, the government uses the fiscal policy to calm down the economy so that it does not collapse. Microeconomic goal are used for a single economic participant or group of participants. So sectorial goals are used to develop particular economic sectors, for example, mining. So the effects of economic policy. Impact of economic policy is economic growth. So that is the impact of fiscal policy. It gives economic growth. It gives price stability. And then It helps with the exchange rate. Government can influence the exchange rate system using government policies, and it gives economic equity. So it helps that the richer do not just keep getting richer alone, and the poor people getting poor alone. And crowding out effects. So an expansionary policy can cause a crowding out effect in the economy. When an increase in government spending is financed by borrowing, it can cause a steep rise in interest rate. So when government is financing projects by borrowing money, everything's going to be expensive in the country. And then we have incentives. It provides incentives to work and the Laffer curve. So the fiscal policy impacts on the labor market by encouraging or disencouraging productivity. So a high tax rate reduces people's willingness to work. This phenomenon is explained using the Laffer curve. So when you're paying too much interest, people do not want to work. So this is the Laffer curve. So as you can see that when revenue increases from zero, that at zero there is no revenue, it goes high. Revenue is going up, and taxes are also going up. So at point A, revenues and taxes now meeting each other there, and then we go high. At that high point there, we have taxes and revenue at equilibrium. They're exactly the same, as you can see. And then towards the right, towards point B, revenue is decreasing at that point. These are the 5 reasons why the public sector can fail. A public sector failure is government intervention in the economy that creates inefficiencies and leads to a misallocation of scarce resources. So features of public sector failure. The following feature characterize government failure. How to identify a failed government or government that is failing. There is no service delivery, wastefulness, ineffectiveness, lack of monitoring and evaluation, and redundancy. So redundancy is when things let's say in a company you have employed more people than you need. That is redundancy. Other people are redundant. They've got nothing doing. They are just there, but there's nothing they can do. So it's redundancy. And then reasons for public sector failure. This is where the public sector fails. Subsidies. Government sometimes provides subsidies to certain firms in order to reduce their cost of production or to encourage the production of that good, and this may create barriers to entry for new firms. So let's say I'm producing chocolates and the government subsidize my chocolate business. I am going to be producing at a very low price, so it's going to be very difficult for other companies to enter that market because the government is already financing me. So that is how subsidies can cause government failure. And then taxes. Taxes on goods and services can rise price artificially and distort the efficient operations of the market and discourage individuals from working hard. So too much taxes can just encourage people to stop working. So that's how tax can cause government failure. And then administered prices. So government can impose minimum and maximum prices for goods. This creates distortion that leads to other problems. So shortage may rise when government fix prices below the market price. Surpluses may be caused when government fix prices above the market price. So administration costs should be exactly align with the market price. They should not be more than the market price or less than the market price. Remember, administration prices are those fines where you pay for your license or where you pay when you have passed a traffic light. So they have to be priced correctly. And then information failure. Government often lacks all the information and facts necessary to make decisions. That's why it fails. And then And then there's bureaucracy. Excessive bureaucracy tends to cause more problems than good. So it's meaning that people, goods have to be of certain standard. So that is a bureau. So that thing can cause government failure, cause only a certain standard will be the one that is allowed uh, in that country. And then there's moral hazards. If people know that they will not carry the costs, they do not take the necessary steps to reduce them and abuse the system. So if you know that you do not carry costs of anything, you can abuse that system. So that's why the market can fail. And then costs, bureaucrats are not as cost conscious as people in the private sector. And the last reason for government failure is rent seeking. And all interest groups such as shareholders, businesses, organized labor, and consumer wants to improve their well-being at the expense of government. So as a result, there's constant conflict between government and this interest groups. So sometimes people are not even paying services for government to keep functioning. So, for effects of public sector failure, what will happen if the government fails? There will be social effects. Service delivery, public sector failure is reflected most clearly in non or poor service delivery, and will also be poverty. And then it will have social, economic, and political. It will have, if government fail, there will be social, economic, political, and environmental effects. So with the economic growth, public sector failure is a barrier to economic growth. So the economy cannot grow, and then there will be waste of resources, price instability, and unemployment. For political effects, a large bureaucracy, and then there will be inefficient. For governmental effects, there will be the degradation. Yes, the failure of the public sector to implement environmental policies has caused the degradation of some of our natural resources. So this is a question that you can do. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until the next one.